Good on you, Hutto, and a big show tonight because the Premiership coach Alistair Clarkson joins us and Mike Sheehan's nervous. Hello and welcome again to On the Couch following round 18 part A, and what an extraordinary round it was. Plenty to talk about. Let's get stuck straight into it. Jason Dunstall and Mike Sheehan joins us. Clarko's in the building, Jason, and a little bit of nervousness, I suspect, between the great man and the coach.
There's already been a little bit of preamble between these two, and I've got a feeling they might go head-to-head again tonight.
Everybody wobbled. That's currently in the top 8 that played on the weekend. They got the staggers. What an extraordinary round it was. What do you make of it all?
We're seeing outrageous results every week now. I mean, we saw Carlton upset North. GWS nearly should have beaten Geelong. Melbourne should have beaten Port Adelaide. And then St Kilda absolutely spanked the Dockers. I mean, human frailties are more prevalent than ever. What's the point in tipping?
Well, give us your theory.
I don't have one. It's a chaos theory, Jared. You can't tip.
But, Jace, there's one constant.
What's that?
And it's called Geelong. Now, I'm still sceptical about how good they are against the very best, but they've had 8 games this year decided by 20 points or less, and they've won all 8. What they are great at is the professionalism to do what has to be done against teams that are inferior to them.
Do you think they're just putting the cue in the rack a bit early, though?
No, I think there are issues for Geelong, but they just do what they have to do to put. They're second. No one really rates them at the moment, except Chris Scott, who says the glass is half full.
Yeah, midway through the last quarter, they're 30-odd points up. Yeah. The cue went in the rack. They stopped defending.
Whatever happens, and they don't play 4 quarters of footy anymore, but they still get across the line, don't they?
They do.
So that's all you need to do.
But you don't think they can win the flag?
I don't think they can win the flag.
Jason, give us a theory, though. You've got to give us a theory. Why did all the sides in the 8 that competed on the weekend get the staggers? Were they looking to the bye? It's such a long season. It's such a marathon. Do you think psychologically they took a weekend off too early?
Some of these teams weren't entitled to be looking ahead because they need those wins to finish top 2, top 4, top 6, wherever it is. So there's so much at stake. It just shows you how much of this game is played above the shoulders.
They're stronger physically than they are mentally, footballers.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What did you learn?
Well, I saw a very exciting team. They actually lost on the weekend. It was about this time last year they started to emerge, and they were slow, I think, to take up, the cudgels again this season. You pointed it out a couple of times, Mike, but the Bulldogs, they are a side to get on board. If you're just looking for a side to barrack for over the next few years, get on board because the level of talent they've got coming through is quite extraordinary, and they play exciting footy, Mike.
I totally agree with you, Jared. I really like what they've done in the last 6 weeks. I mean, we're talking about their kids, and we've talked Bontempelli and Stringer and those kids, but Dalehouse is only 21. I mean, they've got them everywhere. I think that they've got 8 or 10 kids that are going to be real players.
So what do they do about trying to fill in that key position post? The last 25 years we've been discussing the key position post for the Bulldogs. I reckon there's a trap there. They go out and trade for one. They've just got to find somebody and either recruit him in via the draft or pinch somebody from somewhere.
Jason, do you need one? Do you need the traditional marking, goal-kicking key forward, or can you... The Blighty theory, just get in there often enough and someone will kick your goal.
No, because teams are so good now at absorbing that pressure and then rebounding and scoring against you. They need a key position player at each end. Absolutely, because we know Dale Morris battles manfully, but he's outside.
Rufford's going to be a player.
Well, he might be, but they need another one. They need another tall, big bloke down back, and they need a quality marking forward.
The ramifications of the Fremantle loss. Of all the losses, that was the one that, I guess, resonated the loudest, Mike.
I reckon they could have dropped... They certainly had a rails run to the grand final, I reckon, a week ago, and now they haven't got it. And they're no certainties to finish top 4.
Right now, they've beaten Collingwood, Essendon and Geelong inside the 8, and they've lost to Hawthorn, Sydney, to also Port Adelaide and Hawthorn. So they're only splitting at 50-50.
They are, and I reckon they came across with all messages saying that they weren't right to play St Kilda. No. Now, you shouldn't have to be, but they fell for that, Jason. They fell for this view that we'll go over there and we'll get the 4 points and go home and everything will be in order.
Well, they should have been. They only had to play 80% to get it, surely.
Well, and they didn't, did they?
Well, the other team rose. They were terrific, St Kilda. Let's not take anything away from them. They were great, but I've never seen a more listless performance from the Dockers who at no stage rallied. At no stage did they actually say, Oh, I'm not liking what's going on. We need to turn this around.
You would have thought that Ross got the kookaburra out at half-time, getting a little bit of verbal massage around the eardrums, but it didn't elicit the response. This is their draw coming into the finals, and this is why, Mike, you're a little bit concerned about whether or not they can finish in the top four. We'll get their draw up, and here it comes. Round 19, they've got Carlton, Geelong, Hawthorn. They've got one they should win up at the Gabba, but the travel is going to be difficult, and then, of course, they've got Port Adelaide.
I reckon they've got two of those that they could confidently look forward to winning. But the other three are in the balance. They've got to beat Geelong at Geelong.
Three of them at Patterson Stadium, though.
Yeah, but the Geelong one is away. The Hawks at Patterson.
They'll start favourite in every game there.
Will they?
Perhaps not
in every game. They won't start
except
at Geelong.
Down at Skilled Stadium.
And against the
Simmons
Hawks.
Stadium.
If you beat Sydney, they won't start favourite against the Hawks.
That's an if.
Are you concerned about the pressure? I know that Ballantyne wasn't playing and underrated for the
Sandy Lanes
pressure.
wasn't playing and Hill wasn't
Understand
playing.
that. When you look at the time that they're spending in their forward half, it is right down the bottom of the final 8 teams, Mike. It's unlike the Fremantle Dockers. They generally have taken forward pressure into to a new level.
You read the results out, though. I mean, they're not as good this year as they were last year, are they?
Well, not at the present time, but they're the facts. At the present time, they're 7th of the final 8 sides for time inside the forward 50. And I think Chris Mayne has been an issue there because he's now playing in the back half, but he hasn't been the same influential player keeping the ball inside the forward 50.
And Michael Walters hasn't been there, has he? I mean, he was probably nearly the most effective forward last year.
He was, but they had enough quality out on that ground to do something. I thought the midfield was particularly poor.
Yep.
I mean, to see the numbers that Fife and Mundy and Barlow and the rest of them all came up with was extraordinary. But I reckon what concerned me the most and what would have really hurt Ross Lyon were the defensive structures that some of the stoppages in St Kilda's forward line to leave blokes loose around a stoppage. Have a look at some of these blokes that are just standing in space, waiting for the ball to be farmed out, and they conceded goals in this manner, not just once, but 2 and 3 times. I mean, that's very un-Fremantle-like, isn't it?
You're entitled for a weekend off. He'll be looking for a response after the bye.
Well, let me tell you, 20 of them had a weekend off, Jared, and it's you just don't see these sorts of things
But
happening.
it's the cost, Jared. Essendon's in trouble because they lost to Melbourne and St Kilda.
Yep.
Freo's now in trouble because they lost to St
So
Kilda.
who pays the price? There has to be some action, you would suspect.
Well, there'll be 3 come back automatically, the 3 we talked about before. I'm not sure. I mean, it depends on the balance. You can't take him just because the bloke had a bad game. If he's the only bloke for that spot, he's not going to go, is he?
I suspect Cole Sylvia's in a bit of trouble.
Yeah.
It's been a big investment in Cole Sylvia. He's had half a dozen games and his numbers just don't stack up.
Why do you reckon they got him, Jason?
Well, look, he's got talent. There's 3 blokes in board he's got to hit there with the pass. But what probably struck me as even more pertinent in that clip there was how slow he looked when he got the ball. I mean, I've seen him as an explosive high half forward / midfielder.
Has he been explosive, do you reckon, do you?
When he was at Melbourne, absolutely. When he was fit, when he was up and running.
I don't think the Melbourne supporters would say that. I was puzzled as to why Freo would have got him.
They're low numbers, Jared.
Yeah, 1 goal in 6 games. It's just not going to get it done. Now, if he had a stack of tackles to back that up, I think he probably stays in. But
Do you see the same intensity? You see them more than we do. Do you see the same intensity level?
I have done over the last 6 or 7 games. I mean, I had the theory they had the runners-up hangover early. It took them a while to crack into this season, but they've been flying along. I think they're entitled to put their credits on the table and say, let's just see them, wait and see what happens over the next 5 weeks.
I think they've been efficient rather than impressive, I must say.
What about the Cats, Mike? You focused on them, you put the question mark on them. I personally think they don't defend well enough when they get the game notionally in their control.
Well, I suppose when you've been as good as they have for as long as they have, you're entitled to be complacent. This might be criticism of North. North are complacent for no good reason.
Yeah, well, Geelong, they're entitled to it.
They are.
You said something before that I think resonated. You spoke about putting the cue in the rack. They're so good, the Cats. I think they set things up in the first half. And if you have a look at the difference between their first halves and their second halves, it's quite stark. But I think they do their work early and then they perhaps hit the comfort zone. And then if they get challenged, they're always good enough to fight their way out of it. But they just tend to hit cruise control, I think, after they've done the hard work early.
They're cutting it fine, Jason. I mean, had GWS kicked with more efficiency, they would have got them on the weekend.
Sometimes, it might sound funny, but when you win that often, as often as they do, I think sometimes they need a challenge.
Well, I can accept that, but I think that you look at the vision of Chris Scott in the box over the last 3 weeks, he's frustrated. I think he wants to see the graph going like this. At the moment, it is plateauing, and they've got one, I I reckon, last chance with this group of players to snatch another flag. It's an unlikely flag, but there's still a genuine chance, and I think they've got to get into better habits over the next month if they're going to achieve
They got the example that they needed the weekend. Joel Selwood and Steve Johnson are fit again, and with their two best players.
They're dominating. I'm amazed that you don't think they can win it, and you think it'd be an unlikely flag. And here they are sitting in second spot and building towards another great finals campaign. Why do we?
Is that because
why are we so happy to write them off?
But you Hawthorn people have all got a hang up about them, haven't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Players included.
Because I only ever see them play well. That's the difference.
I haven't written them off, but I haven't seen them play at their best for long enough in a game. I think you've got to prove to yourself that you can play 4 sustained quarters against good opposition and bad and take that sort of form into the finals. But right now, everybody's wobbling bar the Sydney Swans.
What shook the faith, I reckon, Jason, was when they went to Sydney and the Swans towed them up from start to finish and beat them by 100 points. And they've lost to the Gold Coast away, Port Adelaide, and they've lost in Perth. So when they've had the big tests that they were able to sort of conquer previously, they haven't done it this time.
Yeah, look, mind you, I think in recent weeks they're starting to get up and going again, and I think they're just building. I think you'll find there's a gradual build for the Cats, and they're looking forward to September.
What do you think about the 3-tall structure for the Giants?
I like it. The more I see of it, the most important thing for me is GWS need to hang on to Cameron, to Boyd and to Patton.
Clubs are going to come at them, Jace.
They are. But these are players you build a team around, Mike. Then you get your structure right around them. You get the good crummers and the speedy ground ball types, and all of a sudden you've got one of the most potent forward setups you could ever want.
So two parts to this question. They can play all three of them in the same 50 metres zone.
Absolutely.
Okay. And the second one, will they be tempted to use one of them as a chip to get a dynamic midfielder?
Well, I don't see why you would, because there's talent in their midfield to start with. But the other thing is, what happens if one of them gets injured? Then you're one out. You just don't do that. I think all three can play together, but you need depth in key positions.
Tell you what, it looked like Jeremy Cameron was much more comfortable playing that high half-forward role, and his possession numbers have gone through the roof.
Been a good couple of weeks for him, hasn't it?
Been an excellent couple of weeks, and I think he's got to work harder and to find the ball a bit more easily and get his average numbers up, even if his goal numbers go down.
North Melbourne will look at one of these kids, won't they? North Melbourne desperately need a key forward. However Drew Peachy has got left, he's clearly in decline, isn't he?
And he's one out as you keep forward.
He is. So
they're trying to play the extra tall, whether it be a Mad Jack Door.
They got Nick Del Santo on the basis that they believe their group's ready to take them to success. So next year is critical, isn't it?
Do you think that's getting ahead of where they're actually at?
I do. But Jace doesn't. He's still quotes their win record against the good teams. So you think they're better than Jared and I think that?
I keep tipping into them and I keep getting torched.
Yeah.
And they
well,
did
we
it
all
to
do
me
that.
again on the weekend.
Yeah.
So the greatest mistake you can make in footy, it would seem, is that you get your list management wrong. So right now, I think they're not far away from making a decision. The coach may be talking about top 4 and winning premierships, that's fine, but if you're in charge of the list management, I reckon you've got to make a bold decision and maybe drill down a little bit deeper and say this group isn't good enough as it stands to take us to a premiership. We may even have to stagnate next year or go backwards to actually go forwards. And I've written down Goldstein, Scotty Thompson, McDonald, Ben Brown. Outside of those 4, just about everybody else is on the table to be drafted. Captain included, Zeeble, midfielders. They've got to get some more A-graders into that group.
They do. Zeeble's the one with the currency, isn't he?
There's a lot of them with currency.
Well, is there?
Absolutely.
Like?
You don't think Cunnington would have currency?
No, moderate. I think
moderate.
Moderate. I don't.
But if you're going to trade, you've got to trade into the first round. So you've got to put, say, a Black up for trade. I think the Dockers were keen on Black. They gave him a 4-year deal. I mean, Black has not delivered so far this season. No. If you could get a first rounder for Black, I don't think you'd knock that back necessarily.
Would you get a first rounder for Black?
Well,
you would have 12 months ago.
Yeah,
I'm not sure you would now.
Stocks have definitely dropped.
You don't think Brad's got to be aware of the situation? I mean, he hasn't been talking top 4, has he? He's the one that's always playing it down, and I think he realises there's a few holes there. And it must be frustrating to coach them when you can see what they're capable of and then what they can also do.
Where would they be had they beaten Brisbane and Carlton, Jace? That's the problem.
Correct.
He says that they're not a top 4 team, but that's because what they do against inferior opposition. They do match it with the better opposition, don't they?
What about Brad Scott? I know he had question marks about himself after the match, but David King, who's a passionate North Melbourne supporter, he was frustrated after the match, as was Michael Voss, and they were referring to the North Melbourne coach.
I question whether they need to spin the magnets a bit more, or they need to be a bit more aggressive with the players at half-time. They need to be a bit more honest during the breaks. Criticism from external to Brad Scott is that nothing changes. Once the game's set on a course, it stays on that course, and there's not enough done for the game to be altered. Do you agree with that, or do you disagree?
No,
with
I agree with that. Based on observations, I'd say that Brad spends a lot of time, or it appears that he spends a lot of time, trying to generate what they've lost.
When the chips are really down, when the game's in the balance, and the game was set on a course for a long time, Vossi. You said 10 minutes in the first quarter yourself. Nothing changed. What changed? What tactical move did they make in the box tonight that changed the game?
Nothing that we could see.
No, well, that's my point.
Well, there's some question marks in the war room, and I admired Brad Scott. He put his hand up and he questioned himself straight up.
He did after he said, clearly there's something that I'm not doing.
Yep.
And the views have been that he isn't as tough as he was as a player. I'm not sure what
It's
that
interesting
means.
you say that, because we've also heard Boomer Harvey talking about it. And I mean, he referred specifically to just whether Brad Scott's been too soft on the players.
If I had one knock on Brad Scott, and whether this is a knock or not, I'm not too sure, but I would have said I would like him to be harder on our group a little bit earlier. And I know coming in as a younger coach, he probably needs to nurture the boys a little bit, especially being such a young group. But now he's found his feet. I think he realises what we can do, and he's seen our very, very good now, and he doesn't want that to drop below par. So he's been very hard on us the last 2 weeks, and it's paid dividends.
Of course, that was pre-game, so it's been hard for 2 weeks and it paid dividends. But then they fell back into the same old habits again, didn't they?
They didn't work hard enough. You can see it on tell. There were lots of occasions where the fumbles you can excuse because sometimes you're a bit off, but they didn't chase as hard or attack the footy as hard as they should have.
And it's impossible to believe that was going to be the outcome. But this game is played by humans, and I've just got no doubt that the bye had something to do with it. Port Adelaide were the other side. Clearly, they've had the staggers over the last few weeks, and they should have lost the match.
It was extraordinary stuff to see. And this is a team that we saw play at a breakneck speed for the first half of the season, and I think we all admired the brand they were playing. Well, I saw them a couple of weeks ago against Richmond when they were severely pressured and it broke down and they couldn't get the run up and going, and then I saw it again in the bits and pieces that I saw in the game against Melbourne. I don't know what's going wrong with them, but they don't have that same dare, do they, that they showed early in the season.
Comes down to individuals. We'll talk about the collective shortly, but on the weekend, Melbourne, they targeted some of their very best players. The first one was Boak. He has had a magnificent season, Travis Boak, but his numbers were off on the weekend. You can see their disposals down to 19. It was the second fewest he's had in 2014. The other one, I think, was Broadbent. He's been a star for them right through the year, off half-back. And I don't think they necessarily locked down too hard on Matty Broadbent, but he was one that didn't deliver.
Matthew Loby's not playing as well as he did. And the other one I want to ask you about, your favourite, Wingard. He's
dropped off. Hamish Hartlett, he's another one. Look at the comparison between the first half of the season and the last 4 or 5 matches. A significant player that has really dropped off.
But
and Jared Polak.
Why have all these players dropped off, Jared? Is it the toll that it takes, the style of football that they play?
I think what's happening, Sin, there's your man, Mike, Chad Wingard. He's gone from an All-Australian down to just a bit contributor. He's still got the star quality, but it's staccato rather than being consistent.
Is it domino effect? If say, Loby doesn't do as well in the ruck or one of the key midfielders is down like Boat, do the others follow suit because they don't get the supply?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you like your leaders to be playing well because they do tend to drag a lot of players along with them. But I had got to the stage where I respected this Port team so much I thought they had contributors everywhere and they didn't rely just on 1 or 2 players. But it just seems that they need those key on-field leaders to be playing well, don't they?
Maybe it's just the fact that they've got about 24 players and they've had 2 major outs in defence, and so the domino theory just weakens them everywhere, and the 3rd and 4th defenders are now playing on 1 and 2. One guy, though, that has been a star, I think, since we've
another
seen
love child of yours, isn't he?
I love Ollie Wines. I think that right now his numbers stack up in his second year with some of the greats of the game, but this is the sort of stuff that I think means that this kid's going to be a career star for them. He probably end up captain, and he gets the job done when it needs to be done, and he's consistent right throughout.
I love the fact that he plays like a really mature player. It doesn't matter what the situation is or what the sequence of events that's unfolding is or the stage of the game, he plays the same way all the time.
Well, comparing to some of the greats of the game, when we use champion data rankings points, Chris Judd, I think, probably was one of the most mature players we've ever seen in his first couple of years. He ranked 110. That's all Australian man numbers for a second-year player, incredible. Now, Del Santo, 5. Ollie Wines comes in at 104. They're big numbers, Mike, and Jack McRae is also
it's
pretty
good
impressive.
company, isn't it? No, like he was born to play league footy, Wines, wasn't he? Like he's strong. He was physical enough from his first game, but as you said, that maturity thing, he knows his way around, doesn't he?
I love the way he plays. And the other thing I'm really happy to report, Jared, is that we have a lot of fans that watch this show, and I'm now convinced more than ever that the umpires are watching this show.
Why is that?
Now, if you recall a couple of weeks ago, we had Kane Corns on as a guest, and he was a terrific chat. Yeah. And we showed this incident where Pittard already had the ball out of the bag in his hands as the Adelaide Crow is having a shot for goal, saw it missing. Before it's even gone through, he's thrown it to Broadbent, and they go coast to coast and kick a goal. Well, they're trying to do it again on the weekend, and they get pinged. So here's Mackenzie having a shot for goal. It's actually, this time it's Jonas is next to the ball bag, and you've got Pittard in the square waiting for the pill. There it is, he throws it to him.
Put the footy back. You can't grab it out before the signal. It's all clear. Can't put the footy out before the signal.
What he's also saying is he didn't think Geordie McKenzie could kick the goal.
But they're onto him. They've cottoned onto it. They saw what we exposed a couple of weeks ago, and they've pulled them up. I love it.
Magnificent work. Some of your finest work. Are you ready to go?
With the coach.
He's brought the troops in.
Have you got that baseball?
I haven't got it. You're going to have to defend yourself. He's brought Georges. He's got the best smile at St Leonard's. And Matthew, your whole Clarkson clan are in to take you on, Michael. And Alistair Clarkson to join us straight after this.
Tippett, one out. Oh, he's got it. He's got it.
It's bad news as far as the Hawks are concerned. The tandem is in the action early. Clever by Jetta, the look away is slapped. And he's bounced it through for a second. Little baby steps at first, and now he's broken into a gallop. Tippett has put it through. Rod brings all round, and Sydney take a big scalp.
It was a big scalp indeed. They won by 19 points in round 8. We look forward to the sequel on Saturday night at the MCG. The coach of the Hawks is about to join us, but those who have watched the show know the history of Alistair Clarkson and Mike Sheehan. So I think it's only appropriate, Mike, that you welcome the Premiership coach.
Thank you so much, Stuart. Welcome, Alistair. It's nice to see you. I'm glad your health's better. I look forward to a very cordial chat with you.
Yeah, we'll have a bit of fun tonight.
I'm afraid you'd say that.
You're looking forward to Saturday night?
Yeah, it's going to be a cracking game. Sydney have been playing some sensational footy, and it's going to be a big challenge for our boys.
Of course, you had no Hodge, no Mitchell down on leadership in round 8, and the Swans may not have Tippett, so it's going to be a very different game.
Yeah, listen, whichever 22 they put out there, they're always very, very competitive. And we're hoping we can be a bit more competitive than we were last time against them.
Clarko, Josh Gibson's ready to return. Buddy Franklin will be his logical opponent when all things are equal. Are you going to bring Gibson back for this one?
Well, if he gets through training this week, he's pretty keen to play. He was pretty keen to play the Adelaide game just before the bye. So, he's had a serious injury, so we need to make sure that it's totally right. And our docs have been pretty conservative with his rehabilitation to make sure that he's totally right. We've still got a lot of footy to play, and we just want to make sure that when he does return, but if he gets through training throughout the course of this week, then he's a big chance to play.
And we play on Buddy?
Oh, we'll just wait and see. It's probably likely that at some point in time they'll play on one another, but we've got Spanger and Shellmakers down there as well, and also Stratton. So between the 3 or 4 of those guys, they'll probably have to share him, I reckon.
It's been a great test of the Hawks' depth with the number of players that they've had out. And you always talk about soldier goes down, you bring another one in. How many soldiers do you need in your regiment, in your squad, that can actually play and play a role to win a premiership, do you think?
Probably you need 32 on your list, I reckon, that can all capable of playing good senior footy. And in 2009 we had a few hiccups after our 2008 victory, and we just didn't have the list at that point in time to be able to complement the more senior guys on our list when we did have a bit of adversity throughout the course of this year, throughout the course of that year. But this year, the Litherlands and the Seglers and those sorts of guys, they've played a fair amount of footy over the last 3 or 4 years and just been waiting for their chance to play. And they've acquitted themselves really well when they have had their chance this year.
Tactics is a massive part of the game. You've revolutionised the game in many aspects. I saw this game against the Adelaide Crows, and we're just having a look at some of the understated guys that have bolstered you, but you use the ball so much, not differently, but you cross the ball to the open side against the Crows, and you seem to expose them a lot with your tactics. How much emphasis do you play on tactics as part of the result?
Not an enormous amount. Yeah, we strongly believe that the most important part of our year is from November through to February, March in our preparation, and a lot of that's physical, but that's also to do with rehearsing and putting in place our game style and the way that we want to go about it. And from that point in time, then it's a matter of just regularly playing to that as often as you can throughout the course of the year. But at various stages, you do have to alter the way things are done throughout the course of the year, and we had to do that 2 or 3 times throughout the course of last year, depending on what was happening with opposition. We've had to do it again, but by and large the bulk of our work's done across the summer.
We saw some highlights of Jonathan Segler there. I'm interested in A, how you got him. He was a listed Collingwood player, never played a game there. You picked him up a couple of years ago, and B, how he's become such a refined player so quickly.
Well, he's been in the system. I think this is his 4th year now. There's 2 years at the Pies and 2 years with us, and he's got a really close working relationship with Damien Monkhurst. He's done a great job with him as the ruck coach. We've tracked him for a fair amount of time. He's the son of an ex-teammate of mine at the Kangaroos, but the Collingwood side were able to get him as some sort of it was a pre-draft. I'm not sure how they actually got him the Pies, but there's some sort of deal that they did with GWS, I think, and so he went there for a couple of years, and then when he wasn't getting much of an opportunity, he fell off the list there. Then we jumped, and we've been delighted with what he's been able to do thus far.
He's your number 1 ruckman now, isn't he?
Well, no, we've got 3 guys that can all compete really, really strongly in the ruck. We've got another young lad, Lukey Loudon, who's been on our list, ironically enough, 6 years, and is really ready to play senior footy too. So we feel like we've got 4 ruckmen that are all capable. Obviously, Hale and McAvoy, the more experienced, conditioned guys, and Segler and Loudon are learning their craft. But Loudon's still finding his way a little bit because he hasn't had many senior opportunities, but the other 3, we don't really put it down to who's number 1. It's just like who needs to perform the role for us on any given day, and at the minute Segs has been playing a pretty important role for us.
Clarko, Sirioli is the sort of player that could be the difference between winning a flag and not. Are you expecting him back? When? And do you consider how you might use him when he comes back?
Yeah, well, he's on track to return in the later stages of the home and away, so we're hoping he might get a game or 2 before the finals. And you're right, he's pretty important to the way that we go about it. But we've been able to win lots of games of footy without him along the journey too. He's suffered a few of these injuries along the line, albeit that it seems a lot more catastrophic than people think. He's actually played a fair amount of footy for us, hasn't missed a lot of games. But when he has, it just seems so catastrophic because he's such a special player. But we're hoping he'll return in the last part of the year, and the injuries that he has received have been done at full speed, running at full tilt. That's his game. So that's very hard to stop that. We'll look at a couple of things. We're learning about him all the time. It seems strange that he's sort of probably had 5 or 6 of these injuries, and we still find like we're learning about him. But the lad's still 24. He's learning a lot about himself, and we're learning a lot too. And hopefully, over time, he'll have less of these injuries.
Brian Lake's serving a 4-week suspension for a brain fade in the game against North Melbourne. I must say I was surprised how pointed you as the coach and a couple of his teammates were about his behaviour. I mean, normally it's, even if you don't like what he did, it's part of the unit sticks solid and defends your man. Would you have done the same thing over again?
Probably in the wash up of it all. I thought it was at the time. I thought it was a pretty serious offence. It wasn't a great look. When I viewed the tape and I spoke to Lakey, there's some contributing factors that I believed, and I also didn't believe at the time that Drew was able to get up so quickly and recover so quickly. So that said to me that it couldn't have been too serious, whatever occurred there.
But your comments came after the game, though, and you'd see
they did, and I hadn't seen the vision, nor had also spoken to Lakey in depth at that point in time, and I hadn't seen 55 different angles that we got over the course of the weekend. So that helped me have a better picture of what went on. But I was disappointed with that whole thing. I was disappointed with the way that we handled it as a footy club. I was disappointed the way North handled it as a footy club. I was disappointed the way the AFL
What did
handled
North do wrong?
I just think the AFL and North, you know, we've got a Tuesday night hearing. Scotty's speaking on Monday night. You know, Drew's on the telly twice across the weekend. He's on radio on the weekend.
But you'd already said. I mean, you were convinced all of us that you believed he'd committed this heinous crime.
What Lakey did wasn't right. And he had to pay a price for that. But the way that it was trotted out across 4 days, I think that as an industry we can do things a hell of a lot better than that. And that includes realising, as an AFL body, realising this is a pretty serious incident that's occurred on a Friday night. It's going to gather plenty of media, maybe ringing both clubs and saying, listen, whoever's involved in this incident shouldn't be speaking to anyone involved in the press until the hearing is heard.
Would you like the hearing brought forward?
Yeah, Sunday night. Friday night incidents, get them out of the road. If they need to be referred straight to the tribunal, get it to the tribunal as soon as you possibly can. So that helps everyone, and that can be done on the Sunday night, and I reckon it'd be great for the game.
One of the issues that's been speculated about, been discussed as a difficult issue for the game is prior opportunity. You would have heard all the, I guess, advice being given to the AFL on ways to change it. If you were ringing up Mark Evans, what would you have to say?
I'd probably my preference would take prior opportunity out of the game altogether and reward the tackler. And you know, I know there's plenty of people out there and saying, "Oh, reward the tackler." That means people aren't going to want to go and get the ball because someone's going to just wait for them and then tackle them. The ball is still the thing that attracts everyone to the game, and people are going to go and get the ball. They're not going to wait for others to go and get it so that you can just tackle them. You know, the fundamental of the game is to go and get it, and I'm pretty sure that the bulk of players will still try to do that. But there's just so many grey areas to do with that particular rule in our game, and I reckon our game survived pretty well for a long period of time when that ruling wasn't in. And it's just made it more confusing. You know, we've got a very, very complex game, and we're making it even more complex with the way that we're interpreting the holding the ball decision with prior opportunity.
Given the success you've had as a club, I mean, it's pretty clear that if you are a club looking or a player looking for success, Hawthorn's a pretty good place to go. Free agency, I suspect you like it because you're in a good position to exploit it. But for the betterment of the game, what do you think?
Well, we had a great discussion with Gil and Mike Fitzpatrick at Gil's place last Monday night, and there was 11 coaches there, and I couldn't believe how galvanised all the coaches were on some issues to do with the game. One of them was over prior opportunity, but a significant one was I think as a coaching group, we just want the game to get back on an even keel right across the board. So fix up the equalisation so that there isn't any academies that benefit sides up in New South Wales and Queensland. We want academies. I think academies are great for the game, but let Hawthorn have an academy in New South Wales to develop players as well, if that's the case, and give us, you know, access to a player if we develop them in New South Wales. We did that when New South Wales scholarship scheme was there. You know, we got Bruce and Suckling and Will Langford have all come out of the New South Wales Academy scheme. So there's a lot of things to do with equalisation that are really, really good for the game, as long as it makes it equal. You know, we've had 4 or 5 years of significantly compromised drafts. And I think there's a crying out from the coaches and the clubs now to let's try to make it as equal as we can. Same salary caps, same rules for everyone, equalise the draw as best we possibly can. If we can get to that, that's when the true integrity of the game will return. At the minute, we've had a very, very compromised 4 or 5 years.
You're coaching the Australian team at the end of the year, so you'll get to deal with the cream of the players from all the clubs. And you've also got Ross Lyon as an assistant coach. It's going to be a good mix mix, isn't it?
Yeah, a couple of firebrands there. And Chris Scott has agreed to join us too on the coaching panel. So, listen, I think whatever mix of coaches, we're all competitive beasts, and I'm really looking forward to working with those guys in particular. But also with the cream of the players around the competition, I think it's a great initiative, and hopefully we can get it back going and really vibrant again, and excite the footballing public of Australia again. Just talking about those players, if you had the option of recruiting one player from another club to Hawthorn, who do you think you'd like?
You can't say Buddy Franklin.
I think I said that last time I was asked this question. Listen. Well, it's interesting you're talking about Wingard earlier on. His drop off in form, but I saw him play a game against us earlier this year. He's a very, very special talent.
Clark, you're not long back from a much publicised illness, Guillain-Barré. Is that how it's pronounced?
Guillain-Barré.
Okay.
So, yeah.
We talked beforehand. I asked you about it. There was moments in that when you were really fearful for your welfare, weren't there?
Yeah, well, so I originally thought that that I just had a pinched nerve in my lower back, and that was referring numbness and pins and needles feelings down into my legs. And I suppose it was when I was in the MRI machine and they'd dismissed that as being the reason for my discomfort, that I had probably 3/4 of an hour lying down in the MRI machine just wondering, what is this that's affecting my legs? Because at that point in time, probably from just above the knees down, I had no feeling whatsoever, and I was walking a little bit like a drunk, unable to retain my balance or anything when I walk. So that was a pretty frightening experience. But there are many things about this illness, and there's so many things about it that I've been really, really fortunate with. And that's that. Number one, we got it reasonably early. But number two, the symptoms that I had were sort of gave me a week's notice, sort of thing. You know, even in the week leading up to me being reasonably numb in the feet and legs on the Saturday night against Port Adelaide. I'd had some warning signs, but I thought it was just due to a pinched nerve or something in the back. But there's a lot of people that have this illness who just strikes them like that, and they have paralysis, and sometimes significant paralysis instantly. And I was really fortunate that I weren't like that.
You got my message? You got my goodwill message?
And
Got
you put Brendan Bolton...
Did I reply to you? I think I did.
You did, actually.
You put Brendan Bolton in the chair, which was a bit of a surprise given you had Brett Ratton there. Can you tell us the reasons why?
Well, it wasn't really my call, to be fair. I was a bit laid up at the time.
Yep.
But it was Foxy and Andrew Newbold and Chris Fagan as the footy manager. So I'm not completely across everything that's gone on there, albeit that we could have elevated any one of three guys. You know, Luke Beveridge is a highly credentialed coach. Obviously, Rats is, and also Bolts. I think strangely enough, one of the reasons is Brendan lives 5 minutes from my place, and so they knew that they wanted a coach to come in that wouldn't be going cold turkey and producing a game plan or a game style that's completely different to ours. They also knew at some point in time, that my assistance to Brendan would be helpful too. So maybe that came into play a little bit. But the other thing that probably came into play is just the fact that he's got a teaching background very, very similar to mine, and the message and the style was going to be pretty similar.
Great to have you in. Great to have your candid thoughts on a lot of issues outside of Hawthorn. I can see Georgia and Matthew over there. They're smiling away. They're pretty proud of Dad. Thanks a lot. Good luck Saturday night for the rest of the season.
Okay, thanks, Jared. Thanks, Precious.
Alistair Clarkson, our special guest. I think a truce has been declared, Michael. You've got away safely. We'll take a break and come back with some more straight after this. interesting observations from Alistair Clarkson, critical of himself, of the Hawthorn Footy Club, North Melbourne and the AFL in the handling of a very high-profile incident, Mike.
I think they'll have to listen to that. He said that all parties made mistakes in this.
Well, I think the key point is you can't contain it, and it just runs wherever the media wants to take it, doesn't it?
And the other point, that Petrie's situation was decided before Lakes. Well, it was inevitable what was going to happen after that, wasn't it?
Yeah, if you've got two blokes involved in the same incident, go to the tribunal, do them simultaneously. Mike, the power forwards, they came back to the fore, Jason, your mob. They were just about dead in round one because...
It was beautiful, Jared. We saw contested marks. I mean, seriously, this game from Jake Carlisle was absolutely one out of the box. Mind you, Nick Revolt was superb, but he does that most weeks. Reece Stanley played the best game I've ever seen him play. Jared Waite, we know what he's capable of, but just to see the big blokes crashing into packs of 3 and 4 and taking those big one-grab marks.
Yeah, it's obviously not by chance. Why has this all occurred on the same weekend?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I think what we are doing though is we're looking. Most of those marks are deep. So you're looking for those deep entries, which gives you a chance to set up if the ball rebounds. But I think now we're also saying if we can get it to a bloke that can mark the ball, let's kick it to his advantage. If he can jump and mark, if he can get a one-on-one, do it. But otherwise, kick it to your go-to bailout kicks.
Did you think the umpires paid more free kicks, which they did statistically? They paid incorrect disposal more often. They blew the whistle a hell of a lot quicker, Mike.
They seem to.
I hope they keep playing incorrect, pay the incorrect disposal free kicks because they're everywhere. There's too many good tackles that go unrewarded.
Now, Jess, I want to ask you about structures. I hear more about structures than I do about marks and kicks, right? There were 3 examples of the weekend where the structures clearly broke down. Have a look at this.
Yep.
That's
Liam Picken would be nervous, wouldn't he?
Liam Picken on a bloke who's marking like John Coleman. Now, Matty Boyd tried to come back and give him a bit of a hand, but where is the big bloke?
Wasn't
there?
a big bloke anywhere near it.
And here we see Westhoff and Jack Viney. How does that happen?
Well, it's someone gets caught out, don't they? And it's obviously a midfielder or a small.
Sorry, I didn't interrupt you here. Wingard's got the ball, taking a mark. He's up against the boundary. He's a left footer, so clearly you've got to block the run off there. But watch this. Westhoff runs into the square with no one within 5 metres of him.
That's really bad. Everyone's looking and pointing, and you can imagine Paul Roos there, can't you?
We stopped it before. Jason and I looked at the film beforehand. There were 5 Melbourne blokes pointing.
Yeah.
All saying...
But the worst thing is there should have been more Melbourne players back there.
Midfielders.
There was the same number of Port players as there were Melbourne. You've got to have a couple standing on the inside so he doesn't run in and snap it, and then you've got to man up all the other blokes, but they're all pointing to cover and no one covered.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you some vision here, Mike, of 2 players. There's an age difference of 20 years and 8 months. Tell me what it says about both people.
Well, this is a Griffin kick into Bontempelli, who's in front of Fletcher and takes a really good mark. Now, there's 2 ways of looking at this. We would have thought Fletcher would have spoiled that, but the kid in front is a genuine star in the making.
Don't underestimate him. And what I like about him too for a midfielder is the size. He can almost play key forward. And good pair of hands as we're having a look here. It's horrible putting that up, isn't it? But it was interesting. Look, it wasn't a great day for Dustin Fletcher. And the funny thing is, once you get to a certain age, and he's about 8 years past the certain age that people start doing it, but as soon as you get into that veteran category, people start saying, is he done when you play a bad game? And I reckon that's a bit harsh on players.
Are you thinking that's more likely now than it was a week ago? Is it a week-to-week proposition for Fletcher?
I don't think you can judge it over 1 week. That's what I'm saying. It's too harsh to do that just because a player's at a certain age.
Bomber said he's playing for his football life over the next 6 weeks.
And that's fair. I think that's fair. And you judge it over that entire period of time. I'm sure there'll be some important roles he's got to play for the Bombers.
Is there a chance he retires on 398 games? And if so, do you find a way to put him on a list somehow, rookie list, etc., to get him through, or is they have to make a hard call?
No, he's got to earn his games.
Gee, how do you deny a bloke 400 when only 2 players have ever done it in the history of the game? But you don't want to carry him for a whole season either, do you?
Would you be carrying him? I mean, he hasn't fallen off.
Well, we don't know. It depends what happens over that next 6 weeks, doesn't it? But you pose the question.
Jared. Depends who the coach is. One coach likes him more than the other.
The coach's hands, and it's a list management decision.
What about the Demons and the Blues they made late in the game, Jace?
Can I tell you right now, this is a game that Melbourne should have been good enough to win. Chris Dawes marks the ball, right? They're in front. There's under 3 minutes to go. If you haven't got a short chip kick, you've got to go long down the line, and when you go down the line, it's to the boundary side of the contest so it can be spoiled for a stoppage. You don't kick it to where the loose players are, back in the corridor, and we all know what happened. It goes down, they score. Then this one, look, he's under a bit more pressure, Grimes, but it was their last chance. They've got 3 players running into space. The Dawes kick was worse,
Yep.
but they had a second chance here to create something. The kick wasn't good enough. See, and what annoys me the most, I think, from a Melbourne perspective, is you probably excuse those if it's a first-year player, but you can't say inexperience is an excuse here.
We can't have a show without referring to Jack Watts. Now, I've been a Watts fan, and I probably still am on balance, but a couple of examples. Watch this here. This is Jack jogging around in a critical area of the contest, puts himself in a position where he's got to take that last lunge at Robbie Gray. Gray goes lower and harder, gets the footy, Jack gets hurt, and he's doubly hurt because Port Adelaide kick a goal from that collision.
Yeah, well, his biggest mistake was...
What are you jogging in the initial...
His issue is not with ball in hand. 13 possessions in the third quarter gets Melbourne back into the game. It's when he hasn't got the ball, his intensity level and his running speed is not enough.
He could have got to the ball first there.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
We don't look. Sometimes the players had 2 or 3 efforts leading into that, so he doesn't have the gas to get there. But at face value, you'd love to have seen a real hard edge about him attacking that one, wouldn't you?
The Saints kicked 3 goals 2 weeks ago against North Melbourne in a whole match. It took them about 5 minutes to do it on the weekend. And there were signs early. I thought Sean Dempster, he put his career almost at stake here.
Well, that's a big
and he copped a heavy whack. This is in the opening minute. Now, I reckon you could argue he didn't need to go. But if he doesn't need to go and set the trend, they may not win.
But he always goes, Sean Dempster.
He does.
Yeah, that's typical, isn't it? It's just unfortunate. Pavlich has got to sort of push forward there by Nunes, isn't he?
That's a nasty one because he was out as soon as the head clash happened, and then he got the double whammy when he hit the deck. But I love the way Lenny Hayes, a bloke that's announced the fact that he's retiring, he leads from the front. He doesn't leave anything out on the track. If you ever wanted someone to set an example, you just say, watch the way this bloke goes about it.
Well, they set the standard, didn't they, in the first quarter?
Let me ask you this. Do you think the Saints blokes going to the ground thought they were a plausible chance of winning this?
No.
No. So a couple of things happened early. A few fumbles by Freo.
Yep.
That spread that clearly these blokes aren't here.
So I think St Kilda were on, and then all of a sudden they get a sniff. Hey, these guys are just half going through the motions.
Like the look of Rewald up the ground. Down in Tasmania, I think they could have put him up early when they were getting stitched up by the Hawks. And I wouldn't be surprised if he has a Richo finish up on the wing for a little bit of time to put some time into Rhys Stanley forward. But there is an example in the last quarter of why Nick Rewald is a superstar. The game is won. That's their first win for 3 months. He can actually taste the Crown Lager, and yet he's still prepared to chase like that.
They're 11 goals in front.
Yeah.
He's run himself to a standstill, and he still finds energy to actually do that.
He's a champ.
He is a champ. He is a champ. Now, Jared, there's a very important question I need to ask my champ. But before we do that, we want to have a listen to the post-match press conference from Mick Malthouse after the Carlton North game.
You've been around a long time, Mick. Just the week you've had. It's a tough one, Lee.
They're all tough.
Any regrets at all about
I'm sorry. Do I need to go to confession or something? Last week. Or I murdered someone?
No, not at all. I'm just saying.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mick.
I found it a humorous exchange between him and Channel 7 reporter Mark Stevens. But tell me this, given the week that he just had prior, where there was almost an intimation, OK, I need to work on this, did it surprise you that that happened again straight away?
Short answer, no. That's Mick.
Should it have happened again?
We say he's a feisty character and all those things. But I didn't think Mark Stevens did anything wrong there.
Didn't he do it just to get a rise out of Mick Malthouse?
What was offensive about the question?
No, I asked you a question. What was the purpose of it? Did he do it to get a rise out of it?
Had not Mick Malthouse had a tough week?
Yeah.
Under the magnifying glass? Is he not entitled to refer to that? It was Mick who said it's not the confessional and I didn't murder anyone. I mean, you want us to ask bland questions to you and sort of say, geez, Mick, you'd be pleased with that. Win number 489.
I was just surprised at the timing of it. Mick was almost walking out the door and...
Carlton called it off and said this will be the last question.
Well, you are the Archbishop.
It came in 3 parts.
It's you that they go to confess all sins, Mike. And Mike's Mad Minute is coming up straight after this. 2 Hail Marys, 3 Our Fathers.
Des Tuppence Moran was murdered.
Yes.
He was part of the notorious Moran family.
Yes.
Did that trouble you that you had that link with a family that was so notorious?
No, it didn't. I knew what my friendship was. I knew who that person was.
The publicity surrounding Jake King and Toby Mitchell and Dane Swan and Mick Gatto. When you read that, what do you think? Are the players entitled to be linked with those notorious characters?
I know Mick Gatto. The dealings I've had with him, he's a pretty decent sort of bloke.
You consider what you're saying. He's a pretty decent sort of bloke.
Well, I speak how I find people.
Tiger star Ricky McLean with open mic straight after On the Couch. Mike, it's your mad minute.
Well, I'm quizzical tonight, Jared.
Quizzical.
A quizzical minute.
Yeah, Mitch Robinson got 2 weeks. Most of you think that was fair enough. He was late with this bump on, was it Lee Adams?
Yep.
Yeah, late. Deemed to have hit him in the head. Gets
deemed.
2.
There's the point of contact.
He gets 2.
Yep.
Now, can I remind you of an incident involving Buddy Franklin a few weeks ago earlier in the season? What's he done there?
Bumped him.
Where's he hit him?
Chin.
With his what?
Point of the shoulder.
Did you see many differences between Robertson and Franklin?
No, I guess the one difference is that he got up, whereas Lee Adams didn't.
No, Adams got up.
After a
No difference.
time.
That was a bad mistake by the MRP. That's where I think Mark Evans should have put that one to...
Well, they're never going to do it, are they?
They should do it. And the reason is because it cost them down the track for consistency.
Now, the upside.
Oh.
The wrong ones always win the mark of the goal of the week for me. Have a look at this. Is the goal of the week. This is a goal kicked by Jay Schultz in Adelaide with his footy club's fortunes and top 4 hopes on the line, right? Disputed mark, but the game in the balance. He goes back and he converts it.
Great kick.
Do you reckon that'll be in the goal of the week contenders when we get them issued next week?
Well, I don't know what they are, but
Well, there'll be a dribble goal to win, won't
it
it?
would be. No.
Well, they always do.
Well, we saw the goal of the year a couple of weeks ago with Matty White's length of the ground running effort, but...
You asked Kenny Hinkley which was the most important goal.
Well, it's kept their premiership hopes alive, their top 4 hopes alive. Who's going to win on Saturday night, Hawthorn or Sydney?
Jason doesn't think they've got any chance at all.
Hawthorn can't beat anybody according to Jason.
Line ball with GWS. I think the Swans will win.
Jason, just for the record?
Fingers crossed, hoping the Hawks can play their best footy.
Well, Brenton Sanderson's our special guest next Monday night. I think the Swans might just get across the line for the record, Mike. Looking forward to open mic. Great jacket and tie shirt combination, Jason. Thanks for your company. We'll see you next week.